Hey, it's Coach Nick Tuminello. I'm the owner of Performance University Speed, Strength, and Conditioning here in Baltimore, Maryland. And I want to show you 3 simple, super effective, and very easy things that you can do right now to drastically make your push-up training more effective, efficient, and safe. So let's get right down to business. First thing, we're going to address 3 things: wrist position, elbow position, and shoulder position, and all these kind of go together. First thing we're going to look at is arm position. For the most part, when people do push-ups, they have their arms flared out to 90 degrees like this. And I don't know where that came from, but this is what people tend to do. So the traditional way people do push-ups is like this. Now, I can't say that that is wrong, but it's not the most efficient way to optimize your leverage. Now, if I bring my elbow in, which is where it should be, not all the way buried to my side, but slightly out here, this is a much better position, because now I've shortened the lever arm. My elbow is much further away from my body here. When I bring it in, my elbow is much closer to my body. That gives me a lot more leverage, so I can better use the horsepower that I have. I can also now utilize my latissimus muscles and some of the muscles in the back, and also it engages my pec a little bit more. So not only do I have more horsepower in there, I'm gaining leverage. So when I'm doing a push-up, I should be like so. So that's the first tip. I'll show you kind of from this angle. Elbows should track more along the side of my body, not flared out. That's number 1. Now let's look at elbow position. So we already talked about the arm should be closer to the body. Whether it's a little bit like this, a little bit like this, that's personal preference. Elbow position. If your elbows flare outside your wrist, so seeing my elbows flare outside my wrist, I'm making this an elbow dominant movement that puts a lot of extra pressure on my elbow joint, which is not safe over the long run, the more and more push-ups that you do. Plus it makes it triceps dominant. And we don't just want to make it a triceps exercise, we want to make it a total upper body exercise: chest, shoulders, triceps, and all those as a unit. So a lot of people think that bringing your hands closer makes it a triceps exercise. It's not where your hands are, it's where your elbow is relative to your wrist. So based on what I just showed you about elbows in closer, what you want to have is your elbow should never leave the position that's above your wrist. So as I drop into this push-up, if you notice I have a 90-degree angle at my elbow. As soon as my elbow drops back like this, here I'm holding myself up, all that pressure is on my elbow. When I feel it, it doesn't feel good. If I move here, now all the pressure is into my wrist and channeled through my bones, which are very, very strong. So now I can use my muscles to press away. So if I'm looking at you from this perspective, I don't want to see your elbows out like this. Your elbows should track just behind your shoulder, like that. So if you're looking at me this way from the floor, that's how the position should look. So we've covered shoulder, we covered elbow, now let's talk about hand position. This kind of piggybacks off the elbow and shoulder position. When your hands are in, notice when I turn my hands in, my elbows flare out. We already know that arm position way out and elbows flared out is not very healthy. So if you turn your hands in, watch what happens when I turn my hands out. My elbows drop in and it shortens that lever arm. And also, check this out. If I flare my elbows out and turn my hands up, watch the distance. The distance from where my hand is to my shoulder. It's a long ways to travel. See that? But if I bring my elbows in and rotate my hands up, you see my hands just got shorter. Look, here, here. And now as I drop down, I've shortened the distance that I'm covering. So not only am I giving myself mechanically more of an advantage, but I'm giving myself less distance to cover. So it's safer on the joints, more horsepower, and putting you in a position that you can crank out more reps and boost the intensity of your workout. So let me show you what I would consider a perfect push-up. Hands are slightly turned out, elbows are underneath the wrist. Now again, that's not just because your elbows are a little closer doesn't mean it's a triceps push-up. That would be a triceps push-up. Here, still chest. Let me show you from the side. So my hands are slightly turned out, away from my body. Arms nice and fairly tight to my body, not dug in, fairly tight, and I drop straight down and up. So here's 5 good reps. And of course I'm keeping my spine straight, none of this stuff, none of this stuff. Alright, see that 90-degree angle? That's what you're looking for. So there you have 3 ways to improve your push-up, and that's a true perfect push-up. Give those a shot. I promise you, you're not only going to feel stronger, but you'll feel a lot less pressure in your wrists, shoulders, and elbows.